Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the January 22, 2024 meeting of the Catawba County Board of Education. We'll call the meeting and our Pledge of Allegiance. We would like to welcome Boy Scout Troop 771 and Girl Scout Troop 1771, and their scout leaders here with us tonight. They are from Bethlehem Lutheran, and they attend school in the Fred T. Ford district. So welcome, and we're glad you're with us. This time, if I could have everyone stand for a moment of silence, it'll be followed by the posting of colors from the St. Stephen's Navy ROTC, and then Mr. Settlemeyer will lead us in the pledge. Post the colors.
Right. Pace. Carry. Colors. Ready. Cut. Forward. March. Color. Halt. Order. Colors. Ready. Cut. Left. Pace. Present. Colors.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time I'll recognize Gunnery Sergeant Pratt from St. Stephen's Navy JROTC to introduce his troop, and you may be seated.
Order. Colors. Ready. Cut.
Good evening. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all for giving me a moment to speak about these cadets and our program. We're having an outstanding run with our cadets. This year, we've qualified for nationals for the third time in a row. The top 35 teams in the nation get to go compete in this. And the Navy actually selected us to be the host of this event in March. So our kids will be going out there competing. They finished 17th in the nation last year, and we're hoping to do a little bit better this year. Currently, I've got Miss Anel Chavez here. She's a sophomore in our program. She is seeking to become a dental hygienist. I have Hunter Knight. He wants to become a history teacher. We still got those wanting education. Then we've got Alex Trejo over here. He wants to become a real estate agent. And following at the end here, I have Alicio Chavez. He's wanting to pursue becoming a diesel mechanic. So all these individuals are looking at future potential careers that make them happy and can take care of them and provide for them. I appreciate the opportunity to come down here and speak in front of y'all and to showcase some of our cadets. These are amazing kids, and I thank the world for letting me work with them. That's all I got. Thank y'all very much.
Colors. Ready. Cut. Forward. March.
Again, we would like to thank Gunnery Sergeant Pratt and his color guard for their service here tonight. We would also like to thank Maiden High School students for the artwork that you see displayed in the boardroom here tonight. That artwork is provided by students under the direction of Ms. Sheree Paysor and Ms. Elizabeth Taylor. So if you get a chance at some point in the evening, check that out. Members of the board, you have Been given copies of the minutes from our December 11th, 2023 meeting. At this time, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of December minutes, raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Also moving forward, we have the adjustment and approval of our tentative agenda for this evening. There are a number of items coming from our work session that need to be added to the adjustment of that agenda, and they are, and I'll just run down this. You can see it in the extended minute or the extended agenda that you have. Add to consent number 3, overnight field trips, Fred T. Ford High School Band. Consent agenda number 6, quarterly fundraisers. You see the 2, one from Startown and one from Bunker Hill. Removing new business number 10, which are the approval of proposed amendments that Ms. Davis went over with us earlier today. Adding new business item number 12, which should be a discussion on input from administrators on our Board of Education self-survey. Number 5, adding new business number 13, which is a discussion on teacher licensure fee reimbursements. 6th thing is to add new business item number 14, approval of certificate of substantial completion and inspection report for the St. Stephen's High School renovations. And finally, add new business number 15, which would be the approval of an amended quote for new furniture at Maiden Elementary. You've heard those additions to the agenda. Are there others? Hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to approve the adjusted agenda as just described.
Make a motion.
A second. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of that agenda signify by the raised hand. And that is unanimous. This time, that brings us to the superintendent's report, and I'll recognize Dr. Stover.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. Thank you, public, for being here. Excited to have our troops here tonight and our leaders. Thank you. Tonight, we've got some extremely intelligent employees to recognize. And not only that, not only are they hopefully better than me at the mic, but not only intelligent, but just super great to work with. So Carl Aldridge, if you would meet us at the front, we've got some recognitions, and the board as well. Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Something.
Do you want me to?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. So tonight we have some graduates to honor, and I'm so excited about that. The North Carolina Association of School Business Officials offers a School Treasurers Academy, and we have 4 school treasurers to honor tonight who have completed the academy. It's 44 hours of instruction. It's 11 half-day classes, but they usually take 2 classes in one day, and they've done a lot of traveling to Morganton to take those classes. And I'm just really proud of these folks. The first person we'd like to honor is Sherry Lee Burton from Claremont Elementary.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bird. Appreciate it.
Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Our next school treasurer is Amberly Little from Oxford Elementary. And we have Robin Moore from Snow Creek Elementary. And last but not least, we have Alexandra Parker Burton from Webb Murray Elementary.
Thank you for your hard work. Good job.
And from the finance department, we have two folks who have completed the North Carolina Association of School Business Officials School Business Managers Academy. They have actually taken 21 courses. That's the equivalent of 84 hours. And they had to travel to Raleigh to take these classes. And I'm so appreciative of them being willing to take time away from their family to go to Raleigh and take these classes. The first person I'd like to call up is Ying Lee. She's our purchasing specialist. And we have Sydney Powell, our accounts payable specialist.
I'll come back over here and we did in between, run of and in between. Scoot back, yeah, like, very good. We don't mind. If I say me, you say Nancy, 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you. Congratulations, y'all.
Would also, just for information purposes for the audience and those joining us by live stream, this is our first meeting that we've live streamed. This is also our first meeting with these newfangled microphones. So if you see us fumbling around up here, it could be our natural tendencies, or it could be we're trying to get familiarized with this new technology. Now recognize Ms. Thompson for Human Resources updates.
Quick update on our hiring at this point. So right now we have 17 licensed positions open. 11 of those are in our exceptional children's department, including multiple teachers, 5 teachers. So on your consent agenda this evening for personnel, you'll see where we have moved some folks around and looked at how we can better utilize our current staff to make sure students are getting that coverage. We also have 28 classified positions open. Right now, we've got 12 teacher assistants, 7 cafeteria staff, 4 custodians, and then a couple of other folks, interpreters and school psychologist internships, those kind of things. So that's our quick update.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. At this point, we are coming to the portion of our agenda for public comment. We do invite and appreciate the comments that members of the public come and bring to us. We would ask that as you come and give your comments, that those in attendance be respectful, whether you are in agreement or disagreement. We also ask that those giving the comments would make sure that you refrain from anything that is slanderous or inappropriate for the setting that we are in. And I will now turn that over to our attorney, Ms. Davis, to conduct that meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, we'll convene the public comments section of the board meeting. This will be for matters that are on the agenda and matters that are not on the agenda. We have 7 people that have signed up. We have asked, as we will, look for the red light. As we have asked, and we will continue to in the future, that you approach the podium, that you state your name, and that you also state the topic that you want to speak about. Again, I will remind you that each of you have 3 minutes. Mr. Sharp will put, as you can see, there's a little timer up there, so you can glance at it while you're at the podium. Try not to adjust the microphone. It's important that it stays where it is so that the people who are watching via live stream can hear. Mr. Sharp has fixed that, so we trust that it'll pick up your voice. If not, I'm sure he'll be running in here. So 3 minutes you have, the clock is there. And the first person is Lynn Dorfman.
I am Lynn Dorfman and will address the book challenge issue. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am a Catawba County taxpayer. Every time I speak here, I try to open with, I'm a Catawba County taxpayer. To me, the fact that my tax dollars support the school system is the price of admission to these meetings, or at least the price to make public comment and be heard. I would never think of going to, say, Ashe or Burke or Caldwell counties to address their school boards. I, of course, care about public education across the state and nation, but if I were to take airtime in Ashe or Burke or Caldwell, well, I don't think it's appropriate. I have less standing there. Yet at a recent meeting of this school board, there was a busload of people from other counties who felt impelled to tell our county how to run our schools. These individuals spoke up and were loudly applauded by many. I must note that my fellow Catawba County taxpayers who believe that trained professionals, educators, should be the ones deciding what goes onto library shelves, sat quietly and listened to outsiders tell us what to do in our schools, and they got raucous applause. I will continue to sit quietly. I will keep paying taxes, and I will continue to advocate for this board to focus on supporting educators, improving student achievement, and leaving decisions on what is available on bookshelves to trained professionals, and leave the ultimate decision on what children read to their parents and guardians. We all know there is an established process to address parent and guardian concerns. However, some of you campaigned on protecting our children. It helped you get elected. The election is over. You've graduated from the sloganeering of campaigning to the realities of governing. You want to protect our children? Your finite time would be better spent protecting students by improving school bus safety, reducing vaping, and providing healthy meals for the disadvantaged, and protecting our children's future by better preparing them for the workforce and to be informed and thoughtful citizens. Leave the theatrics to the drama department. This book banning sideshow is a colossal waste of time and money and a disservice to students, educators, and taxpayers.
Thank you, Ms. Dorfman. The next person to sign up is Flavia Dietrich.
Flavia Dietrich from Terrell. The topic is religious freedom in schools. I'm here to say that it's not the job of this board to uphold and be misguided by anyone's religious agenda. All elected officials have to respect the Constitution, and its First Amendment is very clear about the separation of church and state. President Ulysses Grant, who was himself never baptized, said, "Keep the church and state separate forever." It doesn't matter how many votes someone received because they ran as a Christian conservative. They may want to bring back prayers in school, of course, only Christian prayers, but that would be a violation of the spirit and letter of the law. And those who stand up here and scream, if you're a Christian, you have to ban this book, are also proposing to violate the Constitution. Article 6 says, "No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States." To hear them speak, you would think everyone is a Christian conservative. But what about liberal Christians? What about other religions? What about the non-religious? I am an atheist. I am a citizen with exactly the same rights as Christian conservatives. I am part of a large community of freethinkers who have been bullied into silence. I don't believe in the Christian God, just as you don't believe in Zeus, Vishnu, Thor. The evidence for those thousands of gods is the same as the evidence for the Christian God, which is none. It requires indoctrination from an early age to convince anyone of the veracity, the literal veracity of what's in the Bible. Higher education usually correlates with less religious beliefs, so no wonder the religious right attacks colleges and wants to use public money to fund religious schools. And what are the moral values that Christian conservatives champion? Historically, they have been consistently on the wrong side of history. They supported slavery. They were against women's suffrage. They defended segregation. And they sure don't like us to remind them of all the atrocities committed in the name of their God and the hundreds of thousands burned as witches. The agenda of Christian conservatives has not changed over the centuries. Anything they don't like is obscene, or in words of today, porn. And the scientific facts that contradict the Bible are especially threatening. They can't burn dissenters at the stake anymore, but they can ban books, and they will try very hard to replace scientific knowledge with indoctrination. Let me be clear, what we fight is not the religion, but the explicit and unconstitutional agenda that a minority of Christians want to impose on everyone. And I would like to see more agnostics, atheists, humanists, freethinkers, secularists raising their voice. The time for speaking up is long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dietrich. Charlie Shepherd.
I'm Charlie Shepherd, and my topic is item 11. Later on in the meeting, approval of Catawba County Board of Education nominee for North Carolina School Boards Association Legislative Committee. I'm concerned that our county may not be represented with a conservative viewpoint. I believe we have a conservative county, and we should be represented in that way. The North Carolina School Board Association is very liberal. We know that. It's undisputable. And I know we've worked really hard in this county to comply with the law when it comes to the Parents' Bill of Rights. Last Thursday, Chapel Hill Carborough School Board defied state law by not requiring its schools to notify parents when their students ask to be identified by a different name or pronoun at school. The district's new policy also does not prohibit classroom instruction about gender identity, sexuality, or sexual activity in kindergarten through fourth grade. The Chapel Hill Carborough School Board has continued to speak out against the Parents' Bill of Rights and first considered draft policy updates in November based on suggestions from the North Carolina School Board Association. So the North Carolina School Board Association suggested for them how to break the law and write their policy. Okay. We know that the North Carolina School Board Association endorses candidates for school board in most counties. I want to make sure that none of our nominee has not been endorsed by the North Carolina School Board Association, supported them, or donated to the North Carolina School Board Association. I think that would present a conflict of interest if someone doesn't come from a, well, I'm at a loss for words now. I'm looking for a conservative nominee, and I hope we get that. I thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask for a point of clarification from the speaker?
If the speaker is willing to give that clarification, that's not something we normally do, but
I believe by policy, I'm allowed to ask for a point of clarification. I just wanted to ask Mr. Shepherd if he would.
To direct that to the chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like, as a point of clarification, to find out Mr. Shepherd's source for saying that Chapel Hill Carrboro broke state law.
Mr. Shepherd, you've heard the question. Again, you're just looking for the source of that information.
Source. I don't use Google that much, but it's there. But Just the News is a reliable news source. And I'll get that for you on my phone. I'll give you the article. And,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Shepherd.
welcome.
Michael McLam.
Members of the board, my name is Michael McLam, and I'm here to speak about reading. Later this evening, you will decide on a date for a special called meeting on Later Gator and the Carnival at Bray. Having been at all special called meetings, it's clear to me several members of this board have not read all the books that have come into question. For the upcoming special called meeting, I am requesting that all board members explicitly verify they have read Later Gator and the Carnival at Bray in their entirety. All members of all review committees have read each challenged book. The same should be expected of you. As has been pointed out previously, board members have a constitutional duty to conduct semi-judicial hearings in an unbiased manner, taking into account the greatest good for the most people. The concerns from the complainant may be honest and entirely valid. However, the complainant has not conducted themselves in a credible manner throughout this process. The concerns and the issues at large are deserving of a professional and meticulous approach. And having demonstrated no real understanding of the works, the complainant is evidently motivated by ideological concerns rather than a rational focus on what material students ought to be able to access. If that is the case, fine, but have the integrity to say so and tell us what is the ideology. If it is a belief that Christianity ought to be the main basis for our public schools, then again, say so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLam. Josh Nixon.
Good evening. My name is Josh Nixon, and I'm going to be speaking about a new year at Catawba County Schools. Chairman Taylor and members of the board, as I mentioned, my name is Josh Nixon. I'm a Catawba County Schools teacher. I'm a member of the North Carolina Association of Educators, and I'm also part of the Public School Strong movement in North Carolina. I've sent letters to you over the past year about various things, state legislation, book challenges, and other concerns, and I will continue to do so. However, tonight, I simply want to put a question to the school board. What do you want Catawba County Schools to be known for in the year 2024? North Carolina education made many state and national headlines last year. Some were for low school funding, discriminatory legislation, and public undermining of schools and teachers. Catawba County Schools made some of its own state and national headlines last year. I would suggest that at least some of these headlines are not what we want our schools to be known for. However, a new year is often a time for new resolutions, so I have a few resolutions to suggest. First, resolve to ensure that this school system is a place where the best educators and employees want to work because they know they will be respected and supported as professionals and will be well compensated for what they do. Next, resolve that this school system will provide an environment where families of all backgrounds, beliefs, incomes, ethnicities, and needs know that their children will be welcomed, affirmed, represented, and given the preparation for life that they require. Finally, resolve as a board and as individuals to endorse local and state policies that fully fund and improve our schools, and to only support political candidates and leaders who champion rather than denigrate public education. New Year's resolutions are famously difficult to keep, but I ask these of you because they are what the students, the families, and the employees of Catawba County Schools deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon. Clayton Mullis.
Good evening, board. I want to thank you for your time, and I'll try to wrap up what I got to say in 3 minutes, which is quite a bit. But my topic is commitment, but I do want to make a point of clarification. One thing that was mentioned tonight, the Civil Rights Act in the 60s was passed on a 71-27 vote. And how that vote broke down was 44 Democrats to 27 Republicans making the 71. The noes were 21 Democrats to 6 Republicans. So if it wouldn't have been for the champion work of conservatives, the Civil Rights Act would never have passed. But the commitment I want to bring to you, and it does involve the books. And as reading and studying the other night of my scriptures that I do in my free time, and how people continue to bash people that are conservatives. I have fought a long fight, was a member of the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, and the attacks that people in that organization received when we disagreed was hurtful and wrong. But we were able to form a new organization, the North American Lutheran Church of America, and we have thrived because we're on the Christian faith and scripture led. But it brings me to this. I read a saying from former Alabama coach Nick Saban. In life, we have essentially 5 choices. We can be bad at what we do. We can be average at what we do. We can be good at what we do in life. And maybe that's God's expectation. Or we can be excellent, or we can be elite. And I think that's what the people of this county want to see in their school board. And what does that take to get there? It takes a special kind of commitment, a special type of integrity, a special type of intensity to get there. And I will continue to push that the far issues that's going to affect public education is far more than the books. We've seen it in our churches and our community. And I want to share a quote with you, and I know not everybody in this room is going to agree with me, and that's fine. I respect their opinion. But conformity to worldly customs converts the church to the world. It never converts the world to Christ. Familiarity with sin will inevitably cause us to appear less repulsive. He who chooses to associate with the servants of Satan will soon cease to fear their master. We're not all going to agree on issues. Never will. But I do disagree with people that say conservatives are hateful and mean. I've never interrupted any speaker in this room. I will respect their opinion, and we can just agree to disagree. But I think the people of this county want to see a commitment that does make this school system the best in the state. We've got great educators, and we can do it. But the people of this county deserve to see a commitment like none other. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Mullis. Aaron Schurmeyer.
So I'm Erin Schurmeyer. I'm here tonight to speak about the book challenges and book banning issue. Y'all know me. Normally I have a very eloquent, well-prepared speech ready to go, but I was originally scheduled to work until 8 tonight and only found out at 4 o'clock that oh, somebody else needs to be off early Thursday, so you do get to leave early tonight. So we're going off the cuff. So I do identify myself as a very strong Christian. I have been nominated for vestry at my church. I help teach Sunday school. I'm on the altar guild. I am very involved. I grew up in the Missouri Synod Lutheran Church. When I told my parents I was leaving it for the Episcopal Church, I was told I was going to go to hell. I'm going to let that sink in a second. A conservative Christian told me because I did not go to the church they believed I should, that I was going to go to hell. And I don't want that kind of, for lack of a better word, hate that can come from some conservative Christians to influence and impact our school board and our schools. It's a disservice to our students. I mean, that was told to me by my father. And it has taken me years to repair that relationship. We can't let that type of vitriol against anything that is different and doesn't fit within that box impact our students. We want our students to be open-minded, loving, caring individuals. And one of the things that I think has given me how much of that loving, caring, deep understanding of people that I have is I read banned books as a kid. There are books I vividly remember reading in elementary school when I was on Battle of the Books that some members of this school board would see pulled out of schools. Books that dealt with child abuse, that dealt with the eradication of Native Americans when settlers moved in, that dealt with racism. Those books allowed me to see the world how it is, not a world through the blinders of my conservative Christian upbringing. And one thing that I want to charge this board with, that this year is an election year for some of you. Some of you are up for election again. Please do not let the pressure from either side saying, especially those saying, if you're a real Christian, you'll vote like this, influence how you vote on the books. Lead with love. Lead with our students at heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schermeyer. That concludes, Mr. Chairman, the public comment section of the board meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. And again, thank you to all of the citizens who came and addressed. We appreciate your input. At this time, I will recognize Dr. Stover for consent items on our agenda.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board. In front of you do have the consent items. Again, I want to thank you all for adjusting your agenda. As I've spoken to our directors and teachers, we strive to be perfect, but we never are. And that's, you guys are wonderful for allowing our students to be put first. So thank you. And I apologize that they are on there a little later. So thank you for taking that into consideration.
You've all had a chance, hopefully, to look over the items on the consent item list. Are there questions? If not, does anybody entertain a motion to accept the consent items as presented?
I make a motion to add the consent items as presented.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there a discussion on any of the consent items?
I have a question. Some of these, let me find it. The athletics where they're having like an alumni game and they're doing a youth basketball camp at one of the schools. My question is, if someone gets hurt during that, are they going to be covered by our school insurance, or are they going to have to sign a release form? The reason I'm saying this is I've seen an adult get hurt in a rec game. It was the coaches playing, and he got his knee hurt. It's been several years back, but then he tried to sue the school for being liable for that. So I just want to make sure that insurance will cover us if somebody gets hurt or if there's a release form.
Tell you that we have general liability insurance, which means that in the event the school system is negligent, then our insurance could possibly cover. That's something I'd rather discuss in closed session. However, there isn't, to my knowledge, an individual release agreement with regard to this particular activity. But our general liability insurance would cover negligence on the part of the school system. If we're not negligent, we would not be liable.
Good question. Are there others? We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of accepting the consent items, please signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
At this time, we will move on our agenda item to unfinished business. Recognize Mr. Dan Moore for construction updates.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, members of the board, and Dr. Stover. We have a short presentation of our construction updates at Maiden Elementary School. Great photographs. For the most part, we've had good weather, although we've had a little rough weather of late, and it will slow us down some. That photograph on the left-hand side is a good depiction of progress to this point. You can see on the right-hand side that mechanical is being installed. And I'm going to try to scroll down there. Roofing being installed, and to the left of that photo, you can sort of see what we're dealing with now. We've had a lot of water as of late. So it's muddy outside. Hopefully we can get the inside dried in with windows, with framing. Once we're able to have some type of temporary heat, it will allow us to move forward with the project. Top of the walls there spray painted on the right-hand side to provide an insulation barrier. Working again there on the left-hand side, ductwork being installed in the cafeteria. The right-hand side, the framing being installed above the media center for a required firewall. You can see the point up of the masonry walls after we've done an initial application of a coating to make sure that the walls are smooth, and we'll go back, the mason will go back then and correct any deficiencies in that wall. You see another picture to the right-hand side of framing. Those are actually freezer panels and refrigerator panels. Those are the way large-scale freezers and refrigerators are actually constructed on site in panels. They are here at Maiden E. And then a photograph of the storefront windows ongoing. So the project is progressing well. We hope that we can gain our switch gear that will give us full-time electricity with inside the building, permanent electricity. But I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have with regard to this project.
Are there any questions for Mr. Moore? It's really amazing to see how far that they've come, and I know folks down there are getting excited. I'll refrain from asking you what day they're going to be finished, but I know
we'll
that
see.
folks in Maiden would love to know that.
Thank you.
Also, under unfinished business, we have selection of the dates for board hearings on book challenges, and specifically the book Later Gator by Lauren Mardell and The Carnival at Bray by Jessie Ann Foley. Ms. Davis.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would also add that just today, Mr. Miller sent out an email regarding the appeal of the book 19 Minutes, that district level decision to the board also. And I believe he calculated that the date for that hearing before the board will need to be by March 6th of 2024, unless there is an agreement to an extension of time by the petitioner. So, as you know, with regard to Later Gator and the Carnival at Bray, last year in, I think it was November, Ms. Teague agreed to delay the hearing on those two until a time that in February, that we could decide tonight at this meeting. So we need to do that. In addition, I think it's imperative that we consider 19 Minutes hearing as well. So those are it's really up to the board to set the time, but again, the the agreement was that Later Gator and Carnival at Bray would be set for hearing sometime in February of 2024. And then we have the deadline of 19 minutes needing to be set for hearing by the board on or before March 6th.
I would like to say something. I would like to go ahead and add, if everybody's in agreement, the 19 minutes to be able to do all three books, if that's okay with everyone else.
Just clarification, you mean at one hearing?
Yes.
Like have three book hearings at one hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would like to combine all three.
And that'll be up to the board to make a motion or?
I only comment on that would be in that that's a lot. That's a pretty good load to do three. We've done two before. And those meetings have gone 4 or 5 hours. So my concern with adding, I understand the time crunch and saying March the 6th, but you know, my feel on it is that 3 is a bit much.
I would like to say that we've already had the first two books, the Carnival at Bray, and we've had the books already we've been given to already read, Later Gator, and they're short books. They're not very long at all.
Mr. Abernathy's referring to the time for the hearing rather than for the book. Also, I just wondered what would be the reason for doing three at once?
So we wouldn't have to have two meetings. Combine it and make it one meeting instead of two.
Okay with the two.
Well, we've obviously have two different perspectives on this, so I guess at this point, we would have to decide which way, so we can discuss it further or motions can be entertained. We are legally required for Later Gator and Carnival at Bray, though, in February, so that's first order of business.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, the additional question that I would have or comment would be, if it was limited to the two, then would there be an agreement to extend the March 6th deadline out as we did before?
That would be Ms. Teague's prerogative there, since she is the one petitioning that challenge.
I guess my question is, why would we want to extend that to the March 6th deadline?
Because of the length of the meeting, even with one or two books, and then to add another extends the length of that meeting.
Okay, so would you want to do it at the end of March?
Looking at the calendar, I think, again, I had it up, and excuse me, but in March, I'm sorry. Okay, we have February. Obviously, we have to get the two in February. And then in March, typically we meet Mondays. We're not required to, but those Mondays would be 4/11/18/25 is our regular meeting. Or, no, it's March is the 18th, I think.
26th February, March is
25th. 25th. Okay. So it could be any Monday in March other than the 25th, or it could be, if the group of majority chose to, they could have three in one time at February. But again, there would have motions to that effect.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Ron has got a good point, but I think the reason that the meetings go so long because we appreciate all the input from our communities, and that is probably the main reason our meetings are that, because we have a lot of input. So you're going to have both on both nights. So it's not, we discussed the books, we read the books. That is not all the meeting. That's just probably about a 30 minutes or so of the meeting.
I'd like to know that we did have enough time for the input and for us to
Yeah,
thoroughly discuss the books. And I'm not sure we can do a good job.
Again, the floor is open if anyone wants to suggest a course of action.
Make a motion that if the board's available, that we hear later Gator and
Okay, there's a motion to hear the two books, Carnival at Bray and Later Gator, on February 12th. Is there a second to that motion?
Second that.
There's a motion and a second that Carnival at Bray and Later Gator be heard on the 12th of February. Any discussion further on that motion? Hearing none, I would ask that all those members in favor of hearing Later Gator and Carnival at Bray on February 12th signify by raising your hand. Okay. Any opposed? Very good. So we will hear those two on the 12th of February. Do we need now to entertain a motion about, and this would technically fall under new business, about the 19 minutes?
We just got that. Yes, we just got that today. We need to set that as well, unless there's an extension.
Right. So it would technically fall under new business, but since we are discussing book challenges, I would ask the group's indulgence that we entertain a suggestion for a date for that challenge.
So do we need then to make a motion to amend the agenda to do that in new business?
You can do it by consent and you can set a hearing at any date. You can actually set a hearing by telephone, but we are here tonight and you can do it as well tonight. You don't need to add a new item of business.
If it has to be done by March the 6th by our original dates, doesn't Ms. Teague decide if she will?
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
6th or March 16th. that we need to-
6th.
I'm open to extending.
So for clarification, you do agree to extend it to sometime later in March?
Yes.
Is there a motion or a suggestion for a date to hear challenge on 19 minutes? The regular meeting in March is on the 25th.
Can we wait and schedule that meeting at our next meeting?
Yeah, if you would like to do that, if that,
I would prefer because then I'll have a better idea of what night and I won't have to reschedule in case I have a conflict.
That's fine, as long as you make it clear that you agree to schedule, that you agree to extend the time for the hearing, board hearing of 19 minutes through the end of March 2024, and that you also agree that we schedule that date at the February 26th board meeting.
we will table the action on 19 minutes until our meeting in February, where it'll be on the agenda, and that'll give Ms. Teague time to look at your schedule, and we can then, determine a date in March for that hearing. Okay, thank you. I think that covers our items under the unfinished business. Moving forward into new business, we now recognize Mr. J.R. Sigmund for approval of amended early Head Start policies and procedures. Mr. Sigmund.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Board. I would just like to begin with an explanation of the approval for why we had to amend early Head Start policies and procedures. And I have an attachment. Kim, are you doing? Oh, okay. Marty behind the scenes. Bring that up. Okay. The addition to the policy had to do when we had our last audit back in, it's been so long now, in July, the end of July of 2023. For all of our employees, we have them do an additional background check that the Catawba County Schools does theirs, but then we have to do an additional one through DHHS, and we have to have them fingerprinted. All of that was done. The part that we didn't know about and wasn't aware of was every 5 years, they have to have that DHHS background and fingerprints redone every 5 years. So that's the part that was not in our policies and procedures, and that was the part that we had failed to do. So we have added this into our policies and procedures, as you see here. The only thing I wanted to mention was because of the 5-year renewal was left out, and we failed to do that. And that is now in our policies and procedures that we will do every 5 years for all employees associated with Early Head Start. Any questions?
You've heard the report by Mr. Sigmund on the requested approval of the amended Early Head Start policies and procedures. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the amended Early Head Start policies and procedures as presented.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I would ask that all in favor of the motion to approve the amended Early Head Start policies and procedures, raise your hand. I think that was unanimous. Also, Mr. Sigmund will now request approval of the 23-24 Early Head Start Corrective Action Plan.
Yes. This also has to do with our audit that was done at the end of July in 2023. They found 2 findings, one of which was the fingerprints that we just talked about. We did not have those redone after 5 years. So that has been taken care of. All the employees received another background check with HR through DHHS, and they went to the Sheriff's Department for their fingerprints. So we have received the qualifying letter. So that is taken care of, and that was done by the 1st of November of 2023. So on this corrective action plan, the first target area identifies the fingerprinting, and then I have listed all the steps I took to correct that, which is basically what I just shared with you. And then I linked evidence of completion to all that. And the way we're going to ensure this doesn't happen again is now we are included in the HR spreadsheet where all the other employees are, and HR and myself will send reminder emails the year before it expires, the qualifying letter expires, as we do with pre-K employees. So that's the first target. The second finding that they wanted us to correct was our school readiness goals for Early Head Start. Early Head Start has always had school readiness goals to prepare our children for kindergarten and entering school. There's hundreds of school readiness goals that we address from birth until 3 years old. We've always done that. It's just that the team who came this time did not like the format in which we were doing it. So we had to change the format, and they wanted them tracked and measured. But then when they found out that we had so many, they wanted us to just pick the specific ones for each of the age ranges. So we divided the age range into babies and infants and toddlers. And we took the 5 domains, which you will see in one of these steps listed. The 5 domains: approaches to learning, cognitive, language, health and physical, and social, emotional. And we picked main goals in each of those age ranges for each of those 5 areas. We put that on a document, and now we're going to track those specific goals. In other words, we are going to see when they master it several times, not just one time, but after the educators see that the students have mastered those goals, they will date it at that time, and that will allow us to have a tracking document that the Office of Head Start wanted to see with how we tracked and evaluated and assessed our school readiness goals. So we've always done school readiness goals and we've always tracked them, but we've tracked them 3 times a year through our assessment and benchmark called the LAP-BK. But that's not exactly what they wanted to see. They wanted to see specific school readiness goals and that we were tracking them more often than 3 times a year. So that's how we decided to do that. Not going to go through that here, but you have all 5 of these. I will show you one of what I was talking about. This is approaches to learning, infant to 18 months. Here are 2 of the example goals that we selected for that age range and the indicators. So when educators see the indicators repetitively when they're out in the homes, that will be their indication that those indicators have been mastered and that goal has been mastered. So all 5 of the areas are in this format. This column aligns it to all the curricular systems we use. And this column aligns it to our LAP-BK assessment benchmark that we do 3 times a year. So now everything is interlocked and hopefully this will suffice of what the Office of Head Start would like to see. And then our tracking document that the educators will use to ensure when the students have mastered is simply the same thing you just saw divided into the areas. And all they're going to have to do is put a date of when they have, they decide that the child has mastered it. We wanted to keep it as simple as possible since we were already doing this. It's kind of a hoop we had to jump through. Any questions? And then again, these are all my steps that I had to list for the corrective action plan.
Okay, you've heard Mr. Sigmund's presentation on that. Are there any questions of him? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on approval of the 23-24 Early Head Start Corrective Action Plan.
I make a motion that we approve the Early Head Start Corrective Action Plan.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that motion.
We have a motion and second on the floor. Any discussion? Any discussion? At this time, then, I would ask that all in favor of that corrective action plan approval signify by raising your hand. And that is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sigmund. We will now recognize our Human Resources Assistant Superintendent Ray Thompson for one of the most popular things every year, approval of a new school calendar.
Yes, sir. During the work session, you were able to review the traditional calendar for next year with a school start date for staff on August 12th and for students on August 26th. And I bring this to you tonight for your approval.
And we did see those presentations this morning, both of an early start and the traditional start. So the one that Ms. Thompson is presenting is the traditional. Is there a discussion or questions of her before we entertain a motion? If not, I will entertain a motion on that calendar request.
I make a motion that we accept as presented.
I second.
There is a motion and a second on the floor to approve the 24-25 traditional school draft calendar as presented. All in favor of that? Or, excuse me, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand, please. And that is everybody. Thank you.
And the second calendar that we reviewed earlier in the day was for Challenger Early College, and we made some changes to that one. So teachers will begin on July 29th for their calendar. Students will begin on August the 13th because they have the early college waiver. And we moved September 27th teacher workday to December the 20th to, per their request, to have that additional workday right before Christmas. And then again, they end school for students on May the 16th.
Thank you, Ms. Hodgson. There you have heard the, request for approval for the Challenger Early College calendar for 24-25. Any questions? I will entertain a motion to pass that calendar request.
I make a motion to do the Challenger Early College calendar for this year.
There's a motion on the floor
I second that motion.
and a second. Any discussion about the Challenger calendar? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval of the 24-25 Challenger Early College calendar signify by raising your hand. And again, that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Moore, I think will be standing in for Mr. Hoyle on approval of bid tabulation for Bandy's High School multi-purpose building.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Members of the board, Dr. Stover, you have within your packet a certified bid tabulation form for the Bandy's High School multi-purpose building project. The apparent low bidder is Moss Marlowe Building Company at $318,452. $200,000 of this will be from our directed grant that we received from the North Carolina legislature. The remainder of these funds will be from Bandy's High School renovation grant funds, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
You have heard Mr. Moore's request for approval on that action for the Bandy's multi-purpose building. Any questions or motions to that effect?
I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, for the approval of the bid tabulation for Bandy's High School multipurpose building as presented.
I second that motion.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a motion and a second on the floor for the Bandy's project. Any discussion before I call for a vote? Hearing none, all in favor of approval for the bid tabulation for the Bandy's multi-purpose building, please signify by raising your hand. And again, that is a unanimous approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Moore will present our capital outlay request.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Members of the board and Dr. Stover, you have within your packet a corrected copy of the 24-25 construction and capital outlay requests for Catawba County Schools. This is part of our budget process, and I would seek your approval of this document at this time.
And Mrs. Aldridge did give us updated and corrected sheet with those figures that we discussed this morning in the work session on the capital outlay request. So is there any questions of Mr. Moore or Ms. Aldridge? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion relative to capital outlay requests.
I make a motion to approve the budget outlay request as presented.
Capital outlay.
I will second that.
There is a motion and a second that we approve the 2024-25 capital outlay request as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion to approve the capital outlay request, signify by raising your hand. Thank you. And again, that is unanimous.
Thank you.
And long-range facilities plan. All right.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Members of the board and Dr. Stover, you have a corrected copy of the 2024-2033 long-range facilities plan for Catawba County Schools. And again, it's part of our budget process, and I would seek your approval at this time.
I make a motion that we have Dr. Stover, his designee, enter into negotiations with McKissick for our long-range plan. Am I thinking the wrong thing here?
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Settlemeyer, I think, yeah, that the thing that you're, I think speaking of is going to be at the very end.
My apologies. I'll go with I'll make the recommendations that we go with the blue sheet you gave us earlier with the,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Stuff
This
on
is-
it for the
this is-
schools
this
in
is-
order?
Yes, sir. This is the corrected copy. I went back to my office and corrected it.
And I second that.
And, Mr. Selma, those were confusing. I had to go back and double check that myself. But, so what a motion and second on the floor is to approve the 2024 through 2033 long-range facilities plan that was presented earlier today by Mr. Moore. That motion second is on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will entertain a vote. All those in favor of the long-range plan as presented signify by raised hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Aldridge will now bring us budget calendar approval request.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Stover, I feel like I need to explain the budget calendar just a second because it makes it look like we're way behind because you're approving our budget requests tonight. But the reason that we always bring the calendar at the end of January is because we don't get the due dates from the county in time to have it at an earlier board meeting. So even though we're almost finished, I respectfully request that you guys approve our 24-25 budget calendar.
Again, that information was presented in detail earlier today.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the 24-25 budget calendar as presented by Ms. Aldridge.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Motion and second are on the floor for the approval of the 2024-2025 budget calendar. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by raised hand. Unanimous again. Thank you. Current expense budget request.
So before the meeting, I placed hard copies of my adjusted local supplement projections. I added a column to increase our local supplements by 2.5%, and that would be at a cost of $2.8 million. I added line 6A to new business number 9, our local current expense budget request that adds the $2.8 million. So I respectfully request that you approve our request to the county for our 24-25 local budget.
Thank you. And Ms. Aldridge, I'm correct that if approved, that part of the request would raise our local supplement to 10.5%.
10.5% for certified and 6.5% for non-certified.
And that was one line item in the larger budget.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain motions.
I make a motion that we approve the current expense budget request by Ms. Aldridge.
Second.
We have a motion and second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the 2024-2025 current expense budget request, please signify by raised hand. Again, that's a unanimous vote.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is approval of Catawba County Board of Education nominee for North Carolina School Boards Association Legislative Committee.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of Dr. Stover, at this point in time, the North Carolina School Boards Association has requested that each board or has asked each board to make a nomination to the North Carolina School Boards Association Legislative Committee. That would entail whoever the board nominates If you nominate someone, you don't have to, but if you do nominate someone from this board, then that person would have to complete an application. And that application will then be submitted to the North Carolina School Board's Board of Directors, and they will select from among their applicants the members of the legislative committee. Again, I don't know if anybody on the current board has served on the legislative committee. Dr. Barnett has. And I don't know if you want to share a little bit about what it entails, but one of the questions is, would you be able to give examples of participation in legislative process? What do you wish to serve? Why do you wish to serve on the legislative committee? Have you completed your 12 hours of training? And can you commit to both in-person legislative committee meeting dates, barring an unforeseen emergency? So I'll let Dr. Barnett explain further.
It's certainly very informative because you get to learn a lot about the education legislative program. There's usually 2 meetings, and one's usually virtual. The other one you have to travel to Raleigh for a meeting.
Dr. Barnett, if I'm not mistaken, this legislative committee also works with the lobbyists for the NCSBA on legislation that would benefit, not only schools, but school boards across the state.
Yes, it's actually their legal representation, yes.
So is there a nomination? Anyone want to do this, or I guess we're at that point.
I would like to nominate Michelle Teague.
Okay, we have a nomination on the floor. Any further?
I second.
I was just sitting up, as if we had any further. Hearing no other nominations, all those who would be in favor of nominating Ms. Teague to be a part of that process on the legislative committee, signify by raising your hand. And that is 6. 6. Mr. Taylor, Ms. Richards, Ms. Teague, Mr. Sigmund, Ms. Barnett, and Mr. Settlemeyer. Yeah, and all opposed? And that would be Mr. Abernathy. All right. The next item on our agenda, number 11, is approval of the revised Board of Education schedule.
And I would just point out that the committee, the board did not make any revisions. I think we can table that. The board didn't make any revisions to the Board of Education schedule. That was already approved back last year.
That our action there that we discussed in the work session was a committee that I think Dr. Barnett, Ms. Richards, and who else was it, was going to be part of that, Mr. Abernathy, look at dates to move part of our work sessions to school sites.
For this issue, you can table this to possibly the next board meeting or March.
So wouldn't need a motion to table that, though? Is there a motion to table that action until we actually hear their report?
I motion to table and approve that motion.
Very good. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
All right. A motion on the floor is to table the approval of the revised schedule until the March meeting, when we will hear from the committee on school visits and sites. So any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by the raised hand. And that is unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question, though, about the committee that was formed. You said it's to move work sessions to the schools, but I thought it was more to explore school visits and not just to.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we discussed so much. So these are visits to school sites, separate from our work sessions. And it could include work sessions. Yes. Thank you for that point of clarification. We have discussion item number 12, and this was one of the additions, discussion on input from administrators on the Board of Education self-survey study. So I think the item that was presented, I think Dr. Barnett, was that the cabinet administrative team be part of a 360 evaluation of the board. So
Yes, back in the fall, the board voted to participate in the self-evaluation, and we did that and received those results today in our work session. We had, the results showed that out of the 7 members of the board, 6 people responded, and one of those skipped most of the questions on the survey. So it was very limited in what information we received, but we do have the opportunity to involve our cabinet, our superintendent's cabinet, and our school principals in that survey if the board would choose to do that, so that we can have more information on not only what do we think of ourselves as a self-evaluation, but to have the opinions of people that we serve.
thank you for that clarification. So is there a motion on the table or questions regarding this topic?
I would just point out, Mr. Taylor, that if there is a motion, I think it needs to be clear. The definition of administrator does that include just central office administrators, directors? To what extent? Because when we have surveys, when we say administrators, sometimes that can include principals.
I'd like to make the motion that we extend the self-evaluation that we just did to include the superintendent's cabinet and directors and principals.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on this before we call for vote? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to include superintendent's cabinet, directors, and school principals as part of the survey of the board, signify by raised hand. That is Ms. Richards, Mr. Taylor. I can't see Ms. Dr. Barnett, Mr. Abernathy, and Mr. Settlemeyer. All those opposed? Mr. Sigmund and Ms. Teague. Our next item is discussion on teacher licensure fee reimbursements. And I know that we had this discussion earlier today. Ms. Thompson, your name is beside that item, but I don't know that necessarily.
It was placed on there in the event anyone wanted to make a motion for the board to agree to cover the teacher licensure fee reimbursements as was presented by Ms. Thompson.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, so any discussion of this or motions that we need to entertain?
Do we need to talk about the specifics of this, like the amount of money, the things like that, or we could just make the motion to go ahead and
Could make
and
the
vote on
motion
it?
that was done in open, or today in the work session.
Talk about doing it in 2 parts, correct? I move beginning with the 24-25 school year, Catawba County Schools reimburse each beginning teacher employed with Catawba County Schools for their initial license fee in the amount specified in the State Board of Education policy LINC 008, licensure fees. Reimbursement will occur in the month following the issuance of the license during the school year with which the licensure was obtained and paid by the beginning teacher.
Thank you, Mr. Settlemeyer. Very well said. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and second. Any discussion?
Just had a question. I know it included initial. Was it also renewal, Mr. Settlemeyer? No. That was, you just moved for initial right now is what, okay. I want to make sure I understood the motion.
So there is a motion, a second. We had a clarification. Thank you for that, Dr. Barnett. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment read so eloquently by Mr. Settlemeyer, which I will not attempt to repeat, please signify by the raised hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you. You want to now speak to the second part of that?
Okay, I move that beginning with the 24-25 school year, except for beginning teachers, Catawba County Schools reimburse each teacher for license renewal in the amount specified in the State Board of Education Policy, LINC 008, licensures fees. Reimbursement will occur by October 31st each year after the license is renewed and paid by the teacher.
Thank you, Mr. Settlemeyer. There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? I would say that if approved, this will be 2 steps to help us further attract and retain high-quality staff and hopefully value our teachers for the hard work that they do. All those in favor of the second part of the motion read by Mr. Settlemeyer, please signify by the raised hand. Again, that is unanimous. Thank you for that. Item number 14, Mr. Moore, you want to speak, seek approval of the certificate of substantial completion and inspection report for St. Stephen's High School's renovations.
Chairman Taylor, members of the board, Dr. Stover, you have a certificate of substantial completion produced by our architect for St. Stephen's High School, and I would seek your approval and signature on that document. Basically, it certifies that the building is done. There are some punch list items that have to be completed, but it is a certificate of occupancy and allowing us to continue to have school at St. Stephen's High School. So I would seek your approval or be happy to answer any questions you may have.
You have heard Mr. Moore's request. Any questions or motions relative to that?
Motion to approve the certificate of substantial completion and inspection report for St. Stephen's High School renovations.
I'd second that motion.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I would ask that we seek approval. All those in favor of the certificate of substantial completion and inspection for St. Stephen's High School renovations, please signify by the raised hand. Thank you. And again, that is unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Also, we have already had our closed session ahead of this at the end of our workday. So the remaining items on our list, Dr. Stover.
Approval of amended quote. Should be new business number 50.
Thank you, and I appreciate you keeping me in bounds there, Counselor. New business item number 15, approval of amended quote for new furniture at Maiden Elementary. And again, that would probably be much appreciated. So
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Members of the board, Dr. Stover, you, on December the 5th, we approved a quote from Endicott Group for new furniture at Maiden Elementary School. Tax was not included. It still remains that this group is the low bidder, but we need to approve the quote, adding the tax of $51,048.60 for a total of $780,314.33. So I would seek your approval of that amended quote with tax added.
And that was December 11th, not the 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. So we have heard the request for an amended quote for new furniture at Maiden E, including the tax for those items. Any questions of Mr. Moore? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the amended quote that includes the tax of the amount of $780,314.33.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion?
Chair, I just want to make sure, I know in December we discussed about the shipment and arrival of this.
Yes, sir.
Is that still on target, and where will it be stored and all that?
Yes, sir. We're rolling. Yes, sir.
Thank you, and thank you for that clarification, Mr. Abernathy. At this time, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the approval of the amended quote for new furniture at Maiden Elementary, please signify by your raised hand. Any, and there are none opposed. Thank you. That was unanimous.
Thank you.
Already dispensed with closed session. There are several items, or a couple of items remaining. Dr. Stover, approval of personnel recommendations and addendums.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We've asked that you approve those tonight.
You have all received a copy of the personnel recommendations and the addendum. Are there questions or motions to that request?
Can we make a motion to do both at one time? Is that, all right. I make a motion that we approve both the personnel recommendations and the amendment to the personnel recommendations.
A second.
There's a motion and second on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the personnel recommendations and the addendum as presented, please signify by your raised hand. And again, that is unanimous. And then the final item on our list, we had presentations by 3 groups earlier today. Facilities studies looking at the long-range needs for Catawba County schools. And this is the one that Mr. Settlemeyer was referring to a few moments ago. We had presentations from the first group escapes me. Wolford. We had McKissick Architecture and MGT Education. So any discussion or recommendations or just conversation about those presentations that we saw? Mr. Moore also gave us the price for each of those vendors, and there was a substantial difference in the 3. So, for my part, I liked McKissick for a couple of reasons. They are regionally local. One group's price, I think, was driven up by the fact that, as he, sort of jovially said, that their headquarters was Terminal B in the Columbus Airport. I think we're paying for a lot of airplane time there. And then the group from Florida, I just noted, incorrectly identified a Fayetteville County, North Carolina, and a Aiken County, North Carolina. So if they don't know us, I'm a little turned off on that. That's just my 2 cents.
Mr. Chair, I also like the fact that McKissick has done work in Caldwell County, Burke County. I've even been at those facilities. It was good work that they've done. So
Say that they gave a really good presentation too.
And their quoted price was, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Moore, $179,351, which was substantially lower than either of the other 2. I think you were looking at $299 and then over $500,000 for the other one. So I don't know if there's further discussion needed, but I will entertain motions on that.
I would just point out that any motion, I believe, should be made in this way, that if a board member has a motion to approve one of these particular firms, then they do so on the condition that you grant to Dr. Stover the authority to negotiate a contract. In other words, you're not making a motion to approve the price that they quoted. Just wanted to make that clear.
All right, since I've practiced this already, I make the motion that Dr. Stover or his designee enter into contract negotiations with the McKissick Architecture Group on our facilities assessment study for Catawba County Schools.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second on the floor to approve, to empower Dr. Stover or his designee to enter into negotiations with McKissick. Any discussion about that? Hearing none, I would ask that all in favor of that motion signify by the raised hand. Again, that is unanimous. And that brings me to the end of our agenda, unless I'm missing something. I would now either entertain a motion to adjourn, or if a member has anything we've not addressed, now would be the time.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor, signify by the raised hand. Thank you, and we will see you in February.